Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So today we are going to go over a few different trends we've seen happening within the meta recently. We're primarily looking at TCG cards today. I think we only have one card here based off of OCG trends. Also, before we start, I did want to let you guys know that I will be at YCS Las Vegas this upcoming weekend. I'm going to be doing the written feature matches for Konami, which should be a lot of fun. If you guys do see me and I'm not at one of the feature matches or anything, please feel free to come up and say hi or whatever. It'd be really nice to meet you guys, and I don't think I've been to any big events down in the Las Vegas area, so I'm super excited for that. Anyways guys, let's get started. Alright, we're starting off with a new card today. It is Yubel, the Loving Defender Forever. So when it was first revealed, I think a lot of players didn't really pay attention to the Yubel cards. The Yubel cards were of course cool because they are retrains of a popular old GX theme, but I think a lot of people thought that it wouldn't be anything more than just a fun deck. However, the cards have proven to be a lot better than some people thought, and they are getting a ton of attention. The Fusion monster is very important for the deck, effectively granting Super Poly the ability to clear the opponent's entire board at any time, and it also has a couple of useful burn effects as well. We have additional support cards for the archetype confirmed to be coming out in the next 2 core sets, and they actually make the deck look pretty viable, but on top of that, even now with their limited support, the cards are really strong. I do have a couple of lists to show you guys here related to Yubel. The one on the left is a Yubel deck that I believe took 7th place at the Des Moines Regionals. It's a more pure approach to the deck, but it looks really cool and seems consistent with what we have to expect from the strategy with just the one wave of support. Of course, it will evolve more as more support comes out, but the fact that the pure deck is able to top it all already is pretty impressive. The list on the right is actually more of a branded deck, but it uses 1 Spirit of Yubel in the main deck, 1 of the Fusion in the extra, and then 3 copies of Super Poly as a means of providing additional disruption. With that, we have seen a pretty big bump up in the card's price. It was already a relatively expensive card for an Ultra, sitting at around $10 for a while. Obviously not as expensive as Poplar or Promethean Princess, but more than just $1 or $2. However, with the success that the card saw this past weekend, combined with the hype that we have for the card moving forward, we've seen the Ultra shoot up to right around $20. On top of that, the quarter century printing has gone up as well, as it was around the $100 range before, but they're now up to between $170 and $200. Obviously, as a new card, this card does have a lot of hype around it. However, being new, it probably won't get reprinted until sometime in 2025. I think that this card does have the potential to get more expensive as we get closer to Legacy of Destruction, which comes out at the end of April. If Yubel is something that you're looking to play, even though the price is inflated at the moment, I think it's something that you can look to buy within the next few weeks. Hopefully once it cools back down to around the $15 mark, since I do realistically see the card staying relatively expensive given all of the hype surrounding it. Next up, we have what should be a familiar face. It's the Unchained Soul of Rage. So I think a couple of weeks ago we talked about Yama and how it is seeing something of a resurgence alongside Dark Beckoning Beast as an engine in the Yubel strategy. And as we just mentioned, Yubel is proving to be a really strong looking strategy moving forward. Well, the Unchained Soul of Rage is an extra deck option that's getting attention because of how useful it can be in Yubel as well. For one, you can link with an opponent's monster during their turn, getting rid of that monster and allowing you to make an SP Little Knight or Nightmare Unicorn to get rid of another card. Also, if the Soul of Rage is destroyed, you do get to add a Fiend from your graveyard back to your hand as follow-up, making this a really solid option to end your board with. Price-wise, it sort of feels like we've gone back to Unchained format. Both versions of the card are around the $20 mark. I believe the secrets are $20 to $25, while the ultras are $18 to $20. The card had fallen to about $10 or so after Shavara was hit to 1, and the Unchained strategy seemed to be dead. But as you guys can see from the 1-month graphs shown below, both versions of the card have shot up in price within the last 2 weeks or so. The card still has just 2 printings, so it hasn't had any sort of reprint that'll make it easily accessible for a lot of the player base. It wasn't in Battles of Legend Season 1, and I don't feel like it's the sort of thing that would be in Rarity Collection 2, so we might have to wait quite a while, like until the second half of 2024, before we have some other sort of reprint set where it's possible that this card could be reprinted. Up next, we actually have a card that we just talked about last week called Magical Spring. So this card is being hyped as a going second card, something that you can side in against both Snake Eye Fire King and Voiceless Voice. It basically lets you draw cards equal to the number of face-up spell or traps your opponent controls, and then you discard for each face-up one that you control, usually just the one since it counts itself. Now, as a quick play spell card, this card can be used in the draw phase to play around Droll and Lockbird. Now, the card first got attention last week, but over the weekend I think I did see 2 or 3 deck lists that actually ran this card in the side deck and managed to take top 8 at a regionals, so the card is definitely proving to be a decent side deck option. The card has just 2 secret rare printings, one from Duelist Alliance and the other from the 2015 Megatins. Last week we talked about buying the tin reprints while they were still at only $1 each because of the upward potential of this card. Hopefully you guys did, because each version has spiked by quite a bit within the last week or so. The originals are up to actually $10 each, while the tin reprints are already between $5 and $7. With just the 2 printings and the card seeing so much hype over the last few days, it shouldn't really be a huge surprise to see this card shoot up in price. Of course, that also leaves us wondering exactly when it is that this card will eventually get a reprint, since as we just talked about with Soul of Rage, we don't really have any good places for a reprint to be coming soon here in the TCG. This did used to be a bulk card, however, so definitely check around through your holo book to see if you have any copies of this card lying around. Okay, so this may seem like a weird card to discuss right now, but I do want to talk a little bit about Bonfire. I think we all know what Bonfire is, searching for a level 4 or lower Pyro monster from your deck. Now in the current format, this card is pretty crazy because it can search for Snake Eye, Ash, or Poplar, either of which is basically just a 1-card combo that can build an entire board on its own. At the moment, Snake Eye Fire King is definitely the best deck in the game, and it runs this card at 3, so it should come as no surprise that this card carries a hefty $110 to $120 price tag. Bonfire's price is pretty interesting. After Maze of Millennia came out, we did see Bonfire cool down a bit. As you guys can see here, it hit a low of just over $90. However, it's right around the time that Sneak Peek for Phantom Nightmare came out that Bonfire started to go back up to where it now sits at around $120. Obviously, this being the best deck in the game, players that pulled Poplars and Princesses needed to pick up Bonfires once they decided to build the deck, and that was definitely a factor with the card's price going up as much as it did. However, I do think we should consider other factors here. We have to remember that Age of Overlord actually falls within the reprint range of the 2024 tins, and included in there, we would expect to see cards like Diabellstar and Wanted. Of course, the Snake Eye lore should continue over the next year or two, and they probably won't get hit, but the reprints of these cards will make them a lot more accessible, and people will probably pick up the deck more and more, maybe choosing to play pure Snake Eye, assuming that some of the Fire King cards do get hit. I think that Bonfire is kind of the odd card out here. It's the only expensive card out of Maze of Millennia, and even though other pieces get reprinted, it probably won't for quite a while, yet it's going to be something that people need, and I do get the sense that people feel Bonfire is a safer hold than the Wanted engine. Wanted is already starting to trend down in price, whereas Bonfire has started to go back up. I don't know how to feel about this exactly because Konami has been pretty trigger happy about printing cards earlier. Heck, we could see Bonfire as an OTS Tournament Pack Ultimate Rare in just another couple of OTS Tournament Packs. However, I do think it's something to keep in mind moving forward. If Bonfires start to get too low, maybe as we approach a ban list, it might actually not be a bad card to hold on to an extra copy or 2 of for when those other reprints drop. Okay, so this is of course a smaller card. It's Speedroid Take Tamborg, so this card is probably familiar if you guys played back in Zodiac format, as it was run alongside Speedroid Terratop. This card is pretty simple. If you control a wind monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. As a level 3, this card is used alongside Terratop once again in the Goblin Biker strategy this time. The whole deck revolves around being able to spam out rank 3 monsters, so opening Terratop, searching for Take Tamborg, and getting that first rank 3 monster out onto the board without burning your normal summon can be a pretty good start. Oddly enough, we have seen super rare Take Tamborgs going up over the last month or so. This is the one that's just a one of, and the card does have a rare and common printing that are both really easy to find. It's just the supers though that are for some reason around $5 each right now. I think that this is because this is the only holo printing of the card, whereas Terratop does have both the super and ultimate rare printings available. Those printings have gone up as well, but there's more eyes on the super rare copies of Take Tamborg since it's the only holo option. So I'm not too sure about how viable Goblin Bikers actually are. I tried looking around for some lists from the regionals over this past weekend. I didn't manage to find any lists that actually made top 8s. Either way though, even if you are trying to make Goblin Bikers work, I don't see why you would go and try to spend $5 on this one of brick when you can get the same card for literally 5 cents. This is just something to make note of. I would definitely try to dump your super rare copies for a few free dollars if you can find someone who's actually willing to pay up for it. Another card just to make note of quickly, it's Raid Raptor Tribulanius. This is a card that I completely forgot about, but is something that's been getting some attention the past month or so. Tribute Lanius is a key card for the Raid Raptor deck. It has an ignition effect if it's summoned this turn, where you can send a Raid Raptor card from your deck to the graveyard, and then it does have a battle-based effect as well. The Raid Raptor deck got a pretty big boost with the new cards from Phantom Nightmare, and even though I didn't see too much from them this past weekend, I do still think they're a really solid contender this format, and they will cause problems for players that don't have any outs in their sideboards. Tribute Lanius actually has a few different printings. Both of the Ultras are around the same price at $8 or $9. The graph on the left is for the original Ultra, while the one on the right is for the reprint in Ghost from the Past. The timing has been a bit different with each of these, but each version has moved up in price significantly over the last couple of months. However, the card actually quietly got a reprint in OTS Tournament Pack 24 as a common, so the card is now pretty accessible. Of course, if you're all about blinging out your deck and making everything hollow, then sure, you're going to want the Ultras, but I think most people are okay with just playing whatever version is available. See if you guys can find some copies of Tribute Lanius in your Ghost from the Past bulk, since I think this card used to only be 50 cents or $1, and offload them while the hype for Raid Raptors is still relatively fresh. Alright, and finally the last card we're talking about for today is Trident Dron, specifically here the secret rare version. So in Legacy of Destruction we are getting a brand new archetype known as the Tenpai Dragons. They're a battle phase oriented strategy which historically doesn't really bode too well for them, but they've proven to be a really strong deck over in the OCG. Trident Dron itself is a really useful card because it can attack up to 3 times per turn. You pop other cards that you control up to 2, and for each one that you destroy, this card gets another attack. This combines with the Tenpai Dragon effects, allowing you to deal tons of damage out of nowhere. I did want to show you guys a sample deck list from over in the OCG. This is a list that I found over at roadoftheking.com. Really cool website where they go over meta trends every week or so, as well as show off different deck lists from tournaments over in the OCG. This is the sample list that they show that did well in a tournament over there. It's pretty cool. It uses a couple of different rocket cards in there. The one thing I do want to highlight though is that over in the OCG they have Kaiser Coliseum at 3, whereas it's banned here in the TCG. Now in the article they discuss how sitting on spheres with Kaiser Coliseum up can be very difficult for your opponent to play through. If they summon and then try to attack over the spheres, you bounce their monster back, and then you can further restrict them again if they go for a Link summon play during main phase 2 by summoning a Phantasme. For that reason, the deck might be stronger over in the OCG, and it might not be too strong here in the TCG, but obviously it's a little bit too early to tell, and I still think Tenpai Dragons are worth paying attention to. The reason I want to look at Trident Dron is specifically the secret rare version is starting to trend back down, as you guys can see from the graph here. Obviously, after the archetype was revealed, there was a ton of hype for this card, and actually with the Ultras and Ultimates, their prices are still really high as the original printings for the card, and with the Ultimate, that's the highest rarity version. However, I personally still really like the secret rares. They've come down a bit to right at the $17 mark, whereas they were up at $20 to $25 before. Obviously, we don't know when a reprint for Trident Dron will come to the TCG, it's sort of anybody's guess, but we've talked already about how there's limited room for reprints in the next 4 to 5 months, and Trident Dron just doesn't feel like the sort of card that would actually come in Rarity Collection 2. If you are seriously wanting to play with the Tenpai Dragons and you don't have a Trident Dron already, I would definitely consider seeing if you can pick up a secret rare copy for around $15 if you can find one while the hype has sort of cooled off here. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's Market Watch episode. It's good to finally have some results from the new format under our belt here with the regionals and such that happened this past weekend. Of course, I'm sure that there are some players that saved some of their techs and such for YCS Las Vegas. I'm really excited to see everything that people are going to be busting out there, and hopefully I get to meet with a bunch of you as well. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below and hit subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.